Right now it's minus 12 degrees Celsius, feels closer to minus 20 degrees, which means it's a perfect time to do some cold weather testing with this 2024 Honda Prologue Touring all-wheel drive. Now in the US, this is the Elite trim. This is the top-end trim that you can get for the Honda Prologue. Pricing in Canada, as tested, just over $72,000, about $60,000 in the US. Much better deal if you're down there in the US. Now, if this is the first time that you're joining us here on Test Drive, welcome. I hope you enjoy this video. If you like it, consider subscribing to the channel as it helps us grow. And also check out some of the other content that we've done. We've done a number of electric vehicles over the last 8-9 years that we've been doing Test Drive. But importantly, I want you to go back and look at the Chevrolet Blazer EV as well as the Acura ZDX. We featured those a couple times here on the show because this is essentially a sister vehicle to those cars. Yes, Honda did not actually build this vehicle. It's assembled by General Motors using the Ultium battery platform. It is a fully electric vehicle designed by Honda with a lot of GM components under the sheet metal. But there are some important differences between the Blazer EV and this. First off, when it comes to the power plant, we have two electric motors powering this vehicle. There's no option for front-wheel drive here in Canada. You can only get all-wheel drive. Power numbers, 288 horsepower, 333 pound-feet of torque. That's less than the Blazer EV at 300 horsepower and 355 pound-feet of torque. Now we still use an 85 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery. Honda says it's good for 439 kilometers or 273 miles in this Touring or Elite trim, depending on which country you're in. Now the price between this and a Blazer EV, 2024 at least, is about $4,000. There's two key differences between those two vehicles. This comes with a panoramic sunroof, something you cannot get for 24 on the Blazer EV. However, it does have the rear view camera mirror, which we do see quite often from GM, and it works pretty well. You can't get that on the Honda Prologue. You have to go up to the Acura ZDX. But the Honda is about $4,000 more, so is it worth a little bit more? Because you're not getting Honda reliability. It's based on GM's platform. It's using GM components. You're getting the styling. This is certainly the most unique Honda we've ever featured, and it has been turning a lot of heads. People just have no idea what this is, but is it really the prologue for Honda's electric future, or is it more of the epilogue, at least for GM and Honda working together? We discussed this when I featured the Acura ZDX a few months ago. Honda just isn't happy with this platform. They don't like the range, they don't like the energy efficiency, so this will be the only Honda built on the Ultium platform. They will shift focus and work on their own electric vehicles moving forward. So it's certainly the epilogue for that partnership. But there's a couple key features when it comes to this vehicle. I mean, it's got all the safety tech that you would expect: adaptive cruise control, blind spot monitoring, lane keep assist. You cannot get Super Cruise on this. Again, you would have to go up to the Acura ZDX or go over to the sister vehicle, the Chevrolet Blazer EV. However, we do have a number of tech features on here which are important to note. An 11-inch driver information cluster, an 11.3-inch infotainment system. It does run GM's Google built-in Android Automotive infotainment system. Honda has skinned it to their own liking, but one big difference between the Honda and GM is this has Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, something that GM does not offer. We also have a head-up display, panoramic sunroof, heated and ventilated front seats, dual zone climate control, a 360-degree camera system, as well as a 12-speaker Bose audio system. What you don't get, rear heated seats or a driver-only mode for the HVAC system. And there's a couple other things I want to talk about when it comes to the EV experience, which we'll do now as we hit the road. All right, so we're on the road now in the Honda Prologue. I want to talk a little bit about my experience with this vehicle in the winter. That's obviously what we're doing. I told you we're doing some cold weather testing, so let's get on with it. We completed our 100-kilometer test loop in 4.4 kilometers per kilowatt hour. Now, I don't usually work in those numbers, so converted, it's like 22.7 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. US MPGE is below for our American viewers. It's not bad, believe it or not. I was expecting about that, range. Honda says 439. Every time I turn on the vehicle, it's pretty close to that, despite it being this cold out. So I'm quite impressed by those numbers. However, in order to actually achieve that 439 kilometer range, we need to be averaging closer to 5.2 kilometers per kilowatt hour. Now, right now, after all of my driving, just under 300 kilometers total, I'm sitting at 3.3 kilometers per kilowatt hour. Now, yes, a lot of it is having the vehicle running with the heat going when it's parked in the middle of the parking lot for B-roll, or about 30 minutes when I'm waiting for my daughter after school. So there's a lot of time where the vehicle's not doing anything except for just keeping me warm on the inside here. So that number's not great, but I'm still seeing decent range. With the Google built in though, it's telling me that like if I were to go back to Mississauga, it's going to be closer to 35% range left, or 35% battery left, which, you know, that's a bit of a problem, because most of the electrics that I've tested, you know, obviously they have different battery sizes, but I'm usually getting back to Mississauga from a full charge with like 60%. So it's not great, but we'll see. As I mentioned, test loop wasn't bad. It's been working well. Now, there's a couple things I want to talk about when it comes to scheduling and preconditioning. Those are important things, especially in the winter. The best way to maximize your range and maximize your energy efficiency with an electric vehicle is through scheduling. Now, Honda does have a number of options here. There's a whole charging page on the infotainment system, but it's only worked about 50% of the time for me. And I'll tell you, like, I've set it up so that during the week, I leave in the morning, usually leave, you know, before 9 o'clock. So I set the schedule in 15-minute intervals, so it's not perfect. However, it didn't work today. I didn't change anything. It worked on Tuesday. I got into the vehicle around 8:35 and the car was warm and everything had defrosted. I didn't change anything, but then today I woke up minus, you know, it was actually closer to like minus 16, minus 17 degrees plus wind chill. So I really wanted it to be warm in this vehicle. It decided not to. The other thing too with scheduling is you can only have one time per day. So for me, again, somebody who has a pretty regular schedule, I want to make sure that I'm waking up in the morning, getting the vehicle warmed up, taking my daughter to school. I got to pick her up in the afternoon too. No, Honda doesn't allow you to do that, because I already have a time on Monday through Friday. That's it. I can't do a second time Monday through Friday. So my next schedule is on Saturday. I have to wake up, get out by about 9 a.m. We'll see if it works. I've already filmed this though, so I won't be able to tell you in the video, but it's not working the way that it should. Before anybody says, well, you got to be able to, you know, tell it to precondition. I did. There's an option to tell it I need to precondition, because there's a couple things you can do here. I've told it that I don't want the vehicle to charge between 8 p.m. and 7 a.m. during the week. Those are the more expensive hours here in Ontario, so I want to make sure that I'm saving as much money. And again, the other day I came home, plugged the car in, and right away it started sucking 7.2 kilowatts as soon as I got home at 3:45 p.m. That's not what I wanted. And then yesterday, same time, got home, plugged it in. Yes, it started charging, but it was charging at like 2 amps for a couple minutes just to like connect to the vehicle, and then it flatlined down, and then it did charge up in the morning to have it ready, but then it never did the preconditioning. So it hasn't worked. And consistency is key. If you're buying an electric vehicle, you know, if you're somebody like me who has a pretty regular schedule, you want to make sure that those things are working the way that they should. So I'd give it like a 50% score when it comes to the scheduling and off-peak hours and preconditioning, because it's not working for me. I hope they can fix that. It should just be software, and add more ability, add more times, allow you to have different schedules. I mean, this is just a computer. Think about any electric vehicle is just a big laptop on wheels. You should be able to have multiple schedules that are all working. I don't understand why there's no options for that. So not great when it comes to that, but the overall range has been good. Overall performance has been good on this vehicle. I could put it into sport mode, which, just like on the GM vehicle, is just a button. And then, yeah, you give it some power there, you're up to speed, no problem. I mean, it's not blistering speed. Like I mentioned, this is less power than the Blazer EV, but realistically, you don't need that. Honda says that this really is like a Passport size vehicle. Victor just featured the Passport Trail Sport. So if you're interested in this size segment, check out his video that he did on this. And that vehicle's got about the same amount of power. So you really don't need oodles and oodles of power on a family SUV. So I'm not worried about overall performance. It's good enough. I haven't had any issues with it. In fact, I've enjoyed the power out of it, which is something that I always like about electric vehicles. Instant torque. I don't have to worry about any sort of delay. The vehicle is ready to go. There's no stop-start system. There's nothing to impede the performance of the vehicle unless you're out of range. But I think if you're smart about it, you'll be fine. And that's what we talk about too. I mean, this isn't going to be a replacement vehicle for absolutely everybody. It's a tool in your shed. If you need an electric vehicle, this is a pretty good one. If you don't need one, you're not going to be considering it. I'm not going to tell you need to go buy it if you're not in the market for an electric vehicle. Like, there's just no reason for you to buy it if you don't need it. But I'd say that, even though this is a little bit more money than the Chevrolet Blazer, it is functional enough. And I think for a lot of people, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto are going to pay for themselves over time, not having to have an OnStar data subscription with the OnStar regular subscription, which obviously this vehicle has OnStar because it is GM built, but you don't need to have it in order to use Apple CarPlay. So that's really good from there. But aside from that, I mean, the rest of the interior, they've styled it a little bit like the new Civic and Accord, but for the most part, it's all plastic. Like, there's some soft touch materials here and there, but it is a very basic interior. Yeah, there's some storage in the middle and it's comfortable enough, but it's not a premium vehicle. It's nothing super exciting. It really is, as we've mentioned many times recently here on Test Drive, a toaster. It's an appliance. It's something that you buy because you kind of need an electric vehicle. You need the space. There's not many in the midsize segment. Really, the only midsize two-row electric SUV is the Blazer EV. You go up to a Kia EV9 or the newly announced Hyundai Ioniq 9, those are 3 rows. You don't need all that space. So if you're looking for something a little bit bigger than all the other EVs on the market, like the Ford Mustang Mach-E, Nissan Ariya, Volkswagen ID4, this is a lot bigger because it is a midsize. I don't know if I'd go with this one though, but I don't think I would go with the Blazer EV either. So I guess they're both kind of the same in that regard. But when it comes to winter testing, when it comes to cold weather testing, the vehicle has performed kind of the way that I expected, at least the overall range and energy efficiency to work. A couple things that Honda or GM can work on: have a driver-only HVAC mode, though it's always good to have. Fix the scheduling, fix all of this stuff in the infotainment system, which should be easy enough. That will make a world of difference. Then aside from that, I mean, it's a pretty basic setup. You've got one pedal drive. You do have the little brake mode on the steering wheel like we've seen from the other GM vehicles. I mean, it really is just like kind of does its own thing. Like, it doesn't matter really how hard you push it. You push it a little bit or really hard, doesn't really change the level of braking. So there isn't like a brake mode on this vehicle. There's no paddle shifters to increase the intensity. Those are things that we look for. So when it comes to an EV, I mean, it's like 75% there. When it comes to a vehicle, a mid-size family SUV, it's like 80% there, right? Heated seats in the back would have been nice, and then you've just got 2 little vents. So a couple other things, small little details there would have been nice. But it's a good effort from Honda. I don't think you're going to see tons of these on the road, though. I have not seen a single one in my time here since this has been on the market for most of 2024. And like I said, a lot of people turning their heads, breaking their necks in order to see what this is, because it is pretty unique, and I do like the look of it. It is a handsome Honda. But if you have any questions about this episode of Test Drive, please let us know in the comments. We do get back to everybody. Again, we invite you to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Not only do we do electric vehicle content here, but all sorts of vehicles, luxury, family-oriented, all sorts of stuff. Even classics, we like to do that. Not right now. It's too cold. I don't want to be bringing out anybody's classic cars in winter, but we will be doing that in 2025. So I appreciate you watching, and until next time, take care.